They might be self-aware.
The last episode of the year, 2024.
That's right. And depending on when you're listening to this, I guess Robot Santa has already delivered his
That was last week.
presents. Yeah, we've already unwrapped them and seen what he brought us. I hope everyone's happy with what they got. Robot. I remember there's a few episodes in Futurama where there are like robot versions of the various. Like there's a robot Santa, there's a robot, I guess just like Rabbi or whatever for Hanukkah. There's a robot guy for Robonica, I think is the Hanukkah one. I don't know what the Kwanzaa one is called, but like there's a robot guy for that, and there's a whole musical and everything. So I guess the robot Rabbi has been giving out presents for Hanukkah as well.
12 days.
12, yep. 12 crazy days.
Yeah.
I may be conflating a few things there.
it's something like that.
The point is, Futurama is a great show, and we should all be watching it.
And you may be listening to this in 2025 in the future. And if so, like, hello to the future.
Hello, future.
But this episode is about the past year. And our idea is to reflect just a tiny bit and try to identify who we think are the top 3 winners of 2024 in the global realm of AI. We've kept the definition of winners super loose here. Could mean anything. We don't want to put too many constraints on this.
That's right.
We wanted freedom to hallucinate, experiment.
Right.
And just sort of see what happens. This will be a round robin format where one of us, we haven't decided who yet, one of us is going to kick us off with the number 3, and they will reveal, he's got a nod it. So it looks like it's going to be, they will reveal their number 3, announce the rationale. There'll be a bit of discussion. Now, if one of us had the same one on their list, they will reveal at that time, I also had such and such on my list. And we'll pontificate on whether that was a good idea or not. But I guess we should just get started.
Let's do it.
No time like the present. The time's running out. 2024.
Let's open up those presents.
We don't finish this episode in time. We're gonna be in trouble. All right. My first one is sort of broad. It is a hardware space, but big winner of 2024. I've put down as number 3. This is number 3, not number 1, not number 2, but number 3. Coming in at number 3, I have GPUs.
Everyone
GPUs,
who has some NVIDIA stock, they had some little extra in their stockings this year.
Absolutely. GPUs have been the technology that I think has defined this era, and they've had different moments. Right? It started more in the era of video games. They had their moment, and so that sort of crescendoed with all of the consoles and PC gaming and these blockbuster titles where, right, I don't know how much Grand Theft Auto sells. It's insane, right? Billions and billions of dollars. Right. So they're going crazy. And then we have the crypto movement happening where everyone's buying up every GPU because you basically make money on every GPU you buy at one point in time. It's not exactly the same now, but they sort of rise again, and then the modern AI era hits us, and it just goes absolutely insane. Everyone's buying them. They're not going anywhere. Everyone's building out their monstrous data centers, and I've
seen plenty of people with rigs online where they're like, I got 16 NVIDIA 3090s, and I put them together, and it's just like this wild open, exposed to the air rig. Some guy's like soldering stuff himself together. It's not just data centers. The average Joe and Jane have also gone a little bit GPU crazy, and they've decided we want to have some really capable large language models ourselves. And by God, if you're not going to sell us 1 or 2 cards that'll do it, we'll do it with 4, 8, 16 of them.
Yeah, I couldn't remember how many GPUs I have in the machine that I'm on right now. It's according to the Apple System Information, 40. And these are cores, and not exactly the same, but
I was about to have a panic attack. I'm like, I'm really into this. You cannot have 40 GPUs, Hunter.
I'm saying 40. It's the end of the year, and I'm celebrating my 40 GPUs in one. There are many machines around here, but this one, 40 cores, and it's just going up. This is an M4. There's already talk about, obviously M5's coming next, but M5 will also reintroduce the ultra capacity, and it's going to just be absolutely insane. Not to mention, we talked about the 5000 series coming soon. Next year is going to be incredible for GPUs, but this year, my number 3 winner of the year was GPUs. They helped us a ton, and hopefully they also benefited a ton. All right, I'm passing it.
Okay, fair enough. Not on the hardware front, but I think my number 3 is related to software tooling in the LLM space. I was actually looking up in preparation for this episode, like, when did this library become available? Okay, that was before 24. Wait, when did this? No, okay, that was actually, they first released in 2022. Well, shoot. Still, even though the fact that I can't point to one of my favorite like software libraries and say 2024 is when it showed up, what I can say is 2024 is when a bunch of these different software suites that I've been kind of using, if not necessarily relying on, are becoming more useful to the point where I rely on them, where I'm willing to rely on them in like a production environment. This isn't me tinkering around. This is me saying business runs on this software library. And there's a few of those that have been very much maturing over the last couple of years. And I really do mean that maturation process. As a very specific example, though this is not necessarily one of my favorite libraries at the moment, it used to be, LangChain. LangChain was like, I'm going to say one of the first to kind of come out and grab the consciousness of the ML engineers and say, we've been putting something together that does all kinds of stuff in the large language model space. Just use this.
Give our audience just like, what's the use case for LangChain that they would understand?
LangChain is, instead of me just asking directly a large language model, hey, here's my problem, please solve it. It's to take your problem and atomize it and say, here's one sort of prompt that I want, and it will handle that part. And then it'll parse the response. Then it'll take another, link in the chain and do the next step, and then the next step. And it has a whole bunch of these interconnected or able to be interconnected links that you can put together, these blocks, building blocks, if you will, which is less of the chain metaphor, but here we are. So being able to take a whole bunch of like individual little pieces and then make a whole out of them, I think is extremely appealing, especially because a couple of years ago, very much so, and to an extent still today, have like a problem space of I want to do something with a large language model, and just raw putting together like the actual call to OpenAI or directly to the large language model it doesn't feel very programmy. It feels it's a different feeling as a programmer to be interacting directly with an LLM instead of saying like, here are functions that I'm used to and here's like this way of defining things, and to have that available in a package where you can just say, I've downloaded LangChain and now there's 1,000 little pre-made formulas that I can kind of like hook up to one another. 2 years ago, very much Wild West type territory. Absolutely wouldn't have wanted anything to rely on it in production, because having been someone who was working on it and using it, the package was changing every 2 days, and like stuff was just wildly getting overwritten, and now this doesn't exist anymore, or this doesn't work the way that you thought it did. And sure, you can pin a specific version in place and say this, but everything else around it is moving so much that unless you pin everything exactly in place, in terms of like the version of each little piece of software that you're using, you then extremely quickly won't have access to everything else that's been moving forward in the 1 week since you last pinned all of those requirements. It was impossible. It was maddening. 2024, to me, has been the first time that I've been able to say, here's this piece of software that doesn't just work in a non-janky way. I believe it's still going to work 4 months from now without huge breaking changes to the stuff that I rely on. And even if OpenAI comes out with another new thing, again, constantly do it, 12 days of shipments, I can at least rest easy enough knowing that the thing that I'm relying on in my production environment isn't going to explode. So
Okay, so the
to me,
stability.
number 3 is tooling. It's not just like, there's a zillion other examples out there.
It's matured to
It
give you a
is
level of
matured to the
stability.
point where it's, there's some stability. It's a little less the Wild West. Things are happening in a way that like I can sort of rely on.
Number two.
On
So
the
I think
second of the top 3
you're
Hunter
gonna sing a
gave
song?
to us.
Something in a pear tree.
Yeah. What do you got?
All right. So if there is one company that is synonymous with AI today, it's not Grok. It's got to be OpenAI. Right, like they are the AI company of 2024. I have
if I
some
asked my grandmother, have you ever heard of any AI company? She wouldn't answer because she has passed away. But if she was alive,
but if you were talking to her large language model that you have created,
that I trained to act just like my grandmother. Anyone who isn't in the industry will have heard of OpenAI. They haven't heard of Mistral. They haven't heard of Anthropic.
No,
I haven't heard of Grok.
If there is one company that's synonymous with AI, it has to be OpenAI. They had a blow off the top year of growth. They're well over hundreds of millions of users on ChatGPT. Mm-hmm. They raised insane amount of money. We at one point considered purchasing the entire company. That fell through, but
we didn't get quite enough money donated to us.
This is true. We blame the listeners. It's all your fault. We had the brilliant idea.
Give us enough billions of dollars.
We had the brilliant idea. Why don't we just purchase this thing? It's going somewhere.
Yeah.
And you let us down, listeners. Like and subscribe. But OpenAI, they've been defining what is the cutting edge of consumer. In forms of ChatGPT, in forms of the advanced chat mode and the interactions. I think they have in mainstream. You could pick some esoteric thing on the side, but they are the brand that is of all the brands that are the most synonymous with this technology that's breaking the hearts. And they're the company that, from an engineering perspective, that the most engineers are integrating with. They're kind of like the default standard. Oh, I need to somehow add some AI functionality to this software that I'm working on. Where's the first place you're going to go? Is you're going to go to OpenAI.
Yep.
And then
the second place you go is to use software that uses an OpenAI-like interface.
This
even
is true.
If it's a different provider. Like, they've just kind of won everyone's hearts and minds in that way. I do think that they are certainly not first to market on some things that could be pretty important to consumers, like the projects thing. Claude absolutely knocked that out of the park.
Yeah, but it never made it mainstream.
Right. It's not as mainstream as like your OpenAI, and now OpenAI has projects as well, but months later. So I think it's ever so slightly disingenuous to say that they are like the leader, implying first, but leader in terms of like everyone's heard of them, everyone would go to them first.
Of AI. They're the Apple of AI.
Don't tell the Apple AI folks about that. They'll be livid.
The Apple Intelligence folks?
Mm-hmm. That's right, because it's not AI, it's Apple Intelligence.
It's Apple Intelligence. We learned that this year. We were wrong we had to go back and edit several episodes because we thought AI meant something completely different. All right, number 2 for you.
Number 2, speaking of our friends at OpenAI, the OpenAI O1 model. Now, extremely recently, we haven't talked about it on our podcast yet, the O3 model was announced.
I hear it might be AGI.
A whole other kettle of fish, that model. I want to talk about O1, which released in 2024. And it changed the game is like maybe a smidge of hyperbole, because there is this incremental increase in capability that we've seen with a bunch of different models. But it represents the apex of capability at the time. Similarly, Claude 3.5 Sonnet, they haven't done an Opus, I think, for 3.5 yet. When that came out, another frontier model, I think, is maybe the term that they use. It's one of those like most greatest, goodest, powerfulest models. So we had that, and then there are open source models as well that are often too big to run on local hardware, and then there's ones of like
is from Anthropic.
Right.
And then
and there were a couple of Mistral releases. Mistral Large 2 came out this year. It's something way too big to run on your hardware, whoever's listening to this. But the point is
you took all those other models, you threw them in the trash can, and you've elevated 01. And
no. It's not
worshiping.
01. I'm saying it's all of these top tier models are my number 2 pick.
All top tier models. Okay.
All top tier models of all sizes, not just those big ones. It's even
very
the ones
inclusive
that you can
of
run.
you.
How very inclusive. The reason is because I'm really putting a pin in the fact that 2024 wasn't just like a new tool. It wasn't just quote unquote just new models. It's that they got demonstrably better at every size. The really, really big ones that we're not allowed to see the code to, and the little bitty ones that you can shove onto a phone or anyone's sort of normal computer. They've gotten way better. Again, like in 2022-ish, huge improvements. 2023, huge improvements. 2024, people are starting to think like, well, they've got to be slowing down. Us saying on our very podcast, GPT-5 hasn't come out. Are they like really running into trouble? Are they not seeing
Apparently,
that next generation leap?
There was an expose about that in the Wall Street Journal.
Right, and I think we kind of alluded to it a little bit. The point is, even if the open AI folks are not doing a GPT-5, this stuff is still getting way better.
Yes.
Way better. So there's my number 2, is the fact that all of the big players, all the players big and small, have really pushed the envelope forward.
Number 1 time? Have we gotten to number 1?
And
I'm not great at counting, for the record.
Pear tree.
But I think it goes 1 next. Mm-hmm. So my number 1 is very similar to your number 2. And so some people might not know this, but there are different areas of machine learning. So I guess we should stop. There is something called artificial intelligence. A subset of artificial intelligence is something called machine learning. Machine learning is different from the other areas of artificial intelligence in that it is driven by the data. We have algorithms, which you can think of as math, or you can think of as processes that look at the data and more or less try to find patterns in it and how the data flows to build a program to help you predict similar data at a super high level. And inside of machine learning, there's these sort of like 3 different areas that we would often talk about. There's something called unsupervised learning, where you really are just trying to find those patterns. You can think of like, I'm trying to cluster different similar things around. That's probably the canonical example of unsupervised learning. There's supervised learning, and that's often when you're trying to label something. I have a bunch of examples, and I want to say, oh, this is, it's going to rain tomorrow, or it's not going to rain tomorrow, by looking at all of the different elements of the weather.
Right. Here's all of the information we know about today. It will rain. It did rain on this day. Here's example number 2. It didn't rain. Here's all that information. Doesn't rain. And then you give it more supervised sort of examples. A model comes out that then can say, yup, it's going to rain.
And then the last kind of like broad category of machine learning would be reinforcement learning. And probably the best corollary of this is it's about teaching the AI to win a game. And now that game can be a business process. It can be a literal game. It can be something that you're trying to optimize for. But there's some objective that it's trying to achieve, and you reward it when it takes the right move, and you punish it more or less when it doesn't take the right move, so that it optimizes itself to maximize the reward. So these are the 3 areas. And prior to 2024, when we talked about machine learning, we would talk about these 3 areas. But in 2024, when you talk about AI, when you talk about machine learning, you are probably just talking about the large language model. That has now become kind of synonymous. Even though all the other areas do exist, they're still being leveraged. They are still more appropriate for a lot of different use cases. But when people talk about AI, they're talking about large language models. So they are my number 1 winner of 2024. And the one other part, and so beyond just being the winner, is the community involvement in them and all the open source models, just to expand upon. And Daniel mentioned some open source ones too. But we can now believe with incredible confidence that there will be open access to at least this large language model technology that will be competitive with the best and the brightest from these private companies like OpenAI. I know they have open in their name, but they are not open at all.
Nope.
But we are going to have democratized access to this technology, even though it's ridiculously expensive to create and to maintain. We have figured that out, and that is just incredible and just further supports that this is the year of the large language model. I think we might ultimately move past it. Maybe in 2025, there's some new tech, but for 2024, large language model, LLM. All right. Number one from
Me.
Daniel Bishop.
Hello. Hi, I'm Daniel.
Hey.
I suppose we established that earlier.
Hey.
My number one winner in the
Yes.
AI space for 2024
Okay.
is you. Not you, Hunter, though you're
Darn
included
it!
in the very large you. It's you, the listener, and me, and Hunter, and everybody else, even the people not listening to this podcast, though they should make sure to tell them about it and have
Humanity.
them like and subscribe. The reason why I say you are the winners is because a large language model is really cool. It's a very cool thing that has to be in service of something to somebody. And you, a consumer of products and services out there in the world, if you're interacting with a large language model, even if it is Google telling you in its search results to put glue on your pizza to make sure that the toppings stick a little bit better.
I forgot about that.
There have been some road bumps along the way, and we will continue to see them for sure. The world is getting used to this new technology, but I think we will get used to it in a positive way. We are going to see this make gigantic strides in people's ability to educate themselves. We're going to see massive improvements in the way that we interact with our data and our lives. The promise of the Palm Pilot from a zillion years ago of this little personal assistant that you don't have to pay like an entire person to be your personal assistant. We're starting to get to these kinds of levels. Dare I say, not in 2024. We'll talk more about that next episode. But
2025.
well, yes, not 2024, the year that we're currently. Yeah,
Got it.
Right. But I do think that we are all winners of my number one, of my top three of the year of AI, because as I mentioned for my number two, all of these models of all sizes are getting way more capable, which means more people are going to be able to use these, and they're going to use them in a way that makes a meaningful difference to them. And so that's why I think that we all are the winners of 2024 when it comes to the AI wars.
Nice. It's all fun and games until someone becomes self-aware, I think. Mm-hmm. Well, you've been listening to another episode of They Might Be Self-Aware, the final episode of 2024. We thank you so much if you've been on this journey with us. 2025, we're going to blow it out of the water. We've got some cool plans. Expect some new people and maybe non-people on the show and coming in and commentating and sort of expanding this universe and expanding the community. We're going to be back next episode with our predictions. It'll be the first episode of 2025, and we're just going to lay it all out for you right then. On the first episode, we're going to tell you about your entire year coming up. So if you were wondering, what am I going to be doing for the rest of 2025? Start by listening to that next episode. And Daniel, how do they listen to that next episode if they really want to hear it? Is there a trick?
It's a good question, Hunter. What they should do is go to their favorite internet browser of choice or app on their phone, or asking somebody to do it for them and say,
like a client.
I want to listen to They Might Be Self-Aware. And they'll probably go to a place like Spotify or YouTube or Apple Podcasts or anywhere that you could find podcasts, or TikTok if you want to watch some shorts of ours. Really, there's a lot of ways to watch us and to subscribe to us and give us some thumbs and stars and likes and comments and subscribes and so on and so forth. And partridges in a pear tree. And we would love to see you there with us on our journey towards self-awareness in 2025.
Thank you, everyone, and we will be back next year with more episodes of
They might be self-aware.